Although we have received an enormous amount of praise, to clarify our sometimes misunderstood and misinterpreted PALIN background photo, with her Down syndrome baby Trig labeled what he is, a Down syndrome baby, and Sarah Palin appropriately labeled retarded, which she's clearly demonstrated she is.
McCain asked you to take the number 2 spot on the ticket. For a moment, did you think no?
I did not. I answered him yes because I have the confidence in that readiness and knowing that you can't blink. You have to be wired in a way of being so committed to the mission that we're on.
And believe us, we considered altering the word retarded because it's such an enormous offense to retarded people to lump Sarah Palin in with them.
Career in television broadcasting by majoring in telecommunications.
Insight into Russian actions, particularly in the last couple of weeks, does the proximity of the state give you?
There are next door neighbors, and you can actually see Russia from land here in Alaska.
Well, explain to me why that enhances your foreign policy credentials.
Well, it certainly does. As Putin rears his head and comes into the airspace of the United States of America, where do they go? It's Alaska. My choice is to take a stand and affect change.
Do you agree with the Bush doctrine?
In what respect, Charlie?
The Bush, well, what do you interpret it to be?
His worldview. We know we can affect positive change outside government. I guess a small-town mayor is sort of like a community organizer, except that you have actual responsibilities.
And those actual natural responsibilities that you have and shirk, like the responsibility to manage the daily care of a Down syndrome child, instead replace with your own search for power and greed. In fact, our background is far more than just a background. It's a statement of fact meshed with concern. The background also mentions the fact that Palin voted against special needs children by vetoing approval for funds for the Special Olympics in her state and refusing stimulus money for special education needs. But more to the point, do any of you have a special needs child? Would you cart it all over the United States for your own political aspirations and personal greed? Or do you think that beautiful child is entitled to a proper life? One where it's nourished by the proper environments and schools, special schools, and doctors, rather than being subject to screaming crowds and flying and flitting about, being handled constantly, being used like a political chess piece, while the player using that chess piece denies you a normal life, enriched by being socialized with normal events and other similar children and learning experiences, just for the sake of a political career? That tiny child being whisked around from city to city just to be brought around a slobber on John McCain's lapel? It's ghastly. Using a child that way is offensive, especially a child afflicted with special needs considerations. Ask yourself this: does Sarah Palin really consider herself qualified enough to serve as president, or even vice president, of the United States of America?
Ultimately, what the bailout does is help those who are concerned about the health care reform that is needed to help shore up our economy, helping it's got to be all about job creation too, shoring up our economy and putting it back on the right track. So healthcare reform and reducing taxes and reining in spending has got to accompany tax reductions and tax relief for Americans. And trade, we've got to see trade as opportunity, not as a competitive, scary thing, but 1 in 5 jobs being created in the trade sector today. We've got to look at that as more opportunity. All those things under the umbrella of job creation.
And that is what I'm doing, keeping our eye on the ball. That represents sound priorities. Remember, they include energy independence and smaller government and national security and freedom. And I know when it's time to pass the ball for victory. First things first, as governor, I love my job. We're going to be in really great hands, the capable hands of our Lieutenant Governor Sean Parnell. I will always be standing by, ready to assist. Thank you, and God bless you, Alaska.
So much so that as a Christian mother, she'd give up the delicate necessity of motherhood for a Down syndrome child? And frankly, in our honest opinion, PALIN should tend to being a good mother first. There are plenty of well-qualified candidates without PALIN. America doesn't need Sarah Palin. Her Down syndrome child, Trig, does.
What newspapers and magazines did you regularly read before you were tapped for this to stay informed and to understand
I've
the world?
read most of them, again, with a great appreciation for the press, for the media.
But like what ones specifically, I'm curious that you...
all of them, any of them that have been in front of me over all these years. I have a vast variety of sources where we get our news to